the easiest way to do this is an exercise, but unfortunately, in the time that I had with you guys, I couldn't figure out a great way in a short little, 30-minute content chunk, to demonstrate it. I just want to tell it to you. And then I'm going to give you some exercises that you can do at home that will be amazing. And you can enlist others, because with no knowledge of anything that we're talking about, it works. It gives you the results that we're talking about. So, mirroring and matching. The most important aspect is, are you buying the mind-body connection? Is the mind and the body, are they hardwired? And I want you to think about what that means. Now, I teach it in another way. I talked before in other content chunks and other places. If a depressed person comes into my office, they always have a very similar physiology. You don't have a depressed person come into the office or come into your life and have a big smile on their face. Now, they might have a false smile, but then you're going to get in the 55%, the body will betray that they've plastered a smile on their face and their body is sad. The body cannot disconnect itself from the mind for more than seconds unless you're really, really professionally good. That's people who can beat lie detector tests good. You are hardwired. If I need to impress upon that more to you, type a question to Brian that says, you don't buy it, you're not sure of it, is it really, it's a generality, this you cannot violate it, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, no, I think there's a difference. The point being that when you come in depressed physiology, and we'll take the false smile out of there. You come into my office and, whether you're somewhat frowning, whether you're just miserable looking, your body will be too. So a lot of times the only thing that I do is I force a change in the body. I make people sit up. I force them to breathe deeper and in their belly. I force them to pull their shoulders back and then go, okay, now tell me about your depression. And they can't do it. It now becomes, the words become false. Even though they may be clinically depressed, on meds, really depressed as a habitual sentence of their lives. So you have to understand that when you have the same physiology, you will have the same mindset. And so where this is generally taught is when you go into a setting and you want to mirror and match, and the reason why we use these two terms is because they're different. If I'm sitting across from you and I hold up my right hand as I look at, if you're mirroring me, you're going to hold up your left hand. If you are matching me, you're going to hold up your right hand. So they are different. There is a difference in their outcomes. They do create different things. And, in my original work in the Tony Robbins world, we do this amazing exercise, which I have done with Tony, I've done on my own, I've done in seminar settings. You need, and that's why even tonight it doesn't work, you really need three people. You need an A, a B, and a C. And the A person will think of something, put the associated emotions in it, and we tell them, take a freeze frame photograph of that. Because it might be at the top of a roller coaster, it might be at the end of a marathon run, if it's more positive, it could be at a funeral, it could be at a breakup. You can pick positive or negative emotions. But if A does that, thinks of the picture and gets into that physiology, gets into that moment in time and just holds it. And they're going to hold it about 3 to 5 minutes. What happens then is B will take, seconds to look at them and then attempt to mirror the exact. Now I say mirror because generally we put, A and B side by side. Again, there is exercise differences. I won't go in it tonight. If A and B is, not side by side, meaning A and B are opposite one another, you can do it that way too. But generally, a little better results with a side by side. And then what C does is C will physically adjust them. They might tilt their head a little bit more. They might push up very slightly. And you teach all this, you cue all this, you generally explain it with a demo. But you might push up their smile a little bit. You can place a hand generally somewhere on the chest, high on the chest if you're being proper with the opposite sex, and you can push, up and down to mimic the breathing pattern. So you want them to breathe the same way. No words are being exchanged. You put them into the physiology, and after about 3 to 4 minutes of being there, C will ask B, what are the two predominant emotions you are experiencing? And B will say something, in whispering, I'm nervous and excited. Now the whole time, what's important as a facilitator, I'm up on stage or I'm in a voiceover setting, telling people while remaining in state, just as intensely as you were then. The you were then is the freeze frame photograph that they've taken in their mind and what they're now in that place. So when C gets from B, then C goes and asks A, who didn't hear the whispered words, what are the two predominant emotions? Now, I've done this in international settings. I've got a great story about Malaysia. If you ever want to have a beer with me or ask me a story about Malaysia, I set a record in Tony Robbins land when I did this in Malaysia. You're not going to say, I'm angry and upset. You're not going to say that I'm apathetic and bored. You might say I'm nervous and apprehensive, or you might say I'm apprehensive and giddy. You're going to be 90+%. Everybody in the whole audience, even if you half-ass and do this poorly. The interesting thing then is the next step is you go back to person B and tell them, put apprehension, if these were your two words, put apprehension, if I can spell right, apprehension and giddy in your body. And that's all you say. Just go, get apprehensive and giddy. You will see it happens. You will see the very subtle shifts that the person makes. And then you whisper to whisper to B, just tell me, what you're experiencing now. This is in the audience. And again, I've done this in an audience setting with thousands of people. I've done it with tens of people. It's almost telepathic. They will experience I have people say, I'm on a beach and there's a sunrise and I'm with someone I'm love, and then you go ask, now you can fall out of state and say, okay, person A, what was your memory? It's like, I'm on a beach, it's sunset and I am getting married. It's it's spooky. A third of the audience will get almost the exact memory correct. And then remember, this is 3 to 5 minutes. There's been no words exchanged between anybody. About a third will get, I'm going to say exact, because I think if the exercise was nervous and excitement versus apprehension and giddy, they got the exact emotion right, but maybe they missed the setting. And then maybe a third got close to the emotion, and missed the setting. Nobody, gets off by hardly anything. Nobody. Why? Because the body always tells the truth. Because the body is hardwired to the mind. You cannot violate it. Now what this allows you to do, and you've probably seen this, whether this is, other sales 101 courses, you can go in and there is your prospective customer, and you're going to sit like them, you're going to talk like them. There are some complexities to this. For example, if the customer, let's say, leans in when they talk and back when they listen, then you can't lean in when they're leaning in and lean back when they lean back, because that would be a mirror or a match. That's why this becomes important, because what you want to do, if you're going to match them, when they lean in to talk, you lean back to listen. And that's going to be a tighter fit to them. Versus now you go to talk, they lean back, you lean in the way they lean in. There's those kinds of subtleties and distinctions. Another important one, let's say there's 3 customers on the other side of the table and there's you. Or let's say there's, 5 people in a committee doing something really important. And this is where my last commentary slide, I'm going to talk about the importance of setting intention in the process. Well, where this has importance is you can use your one arm to do person A, you can do your other arm to do person B, you can use your torso to do person C. And again, as long as you have the conscious intention, people go, well, can I do that? Yeah, you can. Is it hard, by the way? No, because I wouldn't intend it to be hard. I would intend it to be easy. And guess what? It is easy. And now all of a sudden, you've created rapport with 3 customers or 5 committee members. You now know what they are thinking. You now know what they are feeling. And we're going to go to Rapport 2 in a moment, why this is really, really important. I just have one last little fun distinction. If you have ever towered over either a small child, or maybe it's even a what we call a lazy teenager that's on a couch, and you're upset, they may or may not be as upset, or their upset is a different upset, and you're blubbering and blustering and blowing, why did you do this? Why? Tell me why. And you get this, I don't know why I did it. I don't know. Try mirroring and matching a child. You will have some of the most profound experiences you've ever had, because it'll be a pure emotional and psychological connection. Very, very powerful tools. Now, Rapport 2, the reason why this is really, really important is because what we're doing here is we're pacing and leading. So what pacing and leading does is, once you have done the mirror and the match and you've established, the psychological, mental, emotional, complete connection, then once you're connected, when you change, they change. You know? So one of the fun, this is the exercise I want you to ponder doing. I'll give you a couple of examples in a moment. You know, one of the exercises that you can do is go into a restaurant, you know, sit there for a few moments, however long, and pick someone that you want to mirror and match. They could be facing you, they could be side to you, they could have their back to you. And whatever they do, however they do it, the pace that they're doing it, you do that too. And here's what's going to spook you out. Within minutes, I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, they will look at you, they will turn around in their chair and look around, they'll look at you, you know, now they'll have a quizzical look on their face, they don't know why they're doing it, but they're going to feel this connection. And then, if you continue the connection, and then you, who's been eating with a fork, because they're eating with a fork, you switch to a spoon, watch what happens. It's absolutely amazing what happens. Some of the great examples, I have a client who just had a conclusion to a 10-year story with me. She called me last week, but she was in the Staples Arena in Los Angeles in the luxury boxes. And she picked a cute guy out half of the arena away. And for about 10 minutes, mirrored and matched him. Guess who 10 minutes later knocked on the door of the suite? Somebody she didn't even know, and just said, I just had this huge pull, this urge to come see you. I could give you example after example after example of how pacing and leading, when you've established this physical connection, which is why a lot of the sales 101 or business 101, you know, kind of courses will teach this as something to do, because it allows you to now suggest why your product is awesome, and you have a higher match rate, you have a higher success rate than people who just go in and, you know, are, you know, bull in a china shop convincers. Yeah, you've got to do this my way. So that's mirroring and matching. Rapport 2 is pacing and leading. You can now begin to slow down an excited, anxious person. You can calm them down. There's just so much. Again, this is probably a 3-hour block of communication alone if I did it in a great seminar setting. Now, I said I'd have a last commentary on this before I turn it over to your question. You know, what do we learn this month? You know, more than anything, what you think are communications is far more, you know, what's the content you're sending and receiving? What's the content? What's the content? You know, what's the why? Why am I doing this? What am I trying to do? Have I set the intentions consciously? You know, do I know? Am I trying to learn something? Am I trying to manipulate something? Manipulation's not bad. All leaders manipulate. Am I manipulating for my ego, for my selfishness, or am I doing it for the greater good? Am I doing it because it's good for you? Setting the intention in the communication process. Taking the time on anything that's important and writing this down beforehand is an amazing exercise in and of itself. What I want out of this meeting, what I want out of this conversation. It could be with a spouse, could be with a child. What do I want? You know, am I going to convince them that I'm right, they're wrong? Am I going to do it? You know, is that what you really want? I would submit to you that when you get really conscious, Brian and I had a knockdown argument last week. And and even asked me. He followed Joe Hardy's window. He goes, well, I want to know something. Are you telling me I have a blind spot? And I proceeded to tell him his blind spot, as I saw, which may or may not be right, it's for him to determine. He was looking for arguments to create right and wrong out of it. We're experts at this, and we do this. We fall into these common traps. We're human. But when you get far more conscious about who you are, setting your goals, yes, pay attention to the new tools, kind versus right, Joe Hardy's window. Yes, it will improve the process of sending and receiving. But the more you are conscious of your intention or intentions, more you get conscious on others, and they may know them or they may not. But what will always tell you their intentions? Always, their body will tell you. As a leader, own and never leave the high ground, you're going to create some incredible, powerful communications with one another.